When a deadly flood struck a small town, one dog stayed beside his injured owner. They told him to run. They told him to save himself, but in the middle of a deadly flood in a small American town, one dog refused to leave his injured owner behind. For 12 long hours, he stood in the rising water, guarding the man who once saved him. In a quiet town near the banks of the Mississippi River, there lived a humble carpenter named Daniel Harper. Daniel wasn't a wealthy man. He lived in a small wooden house at the edge of town, close to the river. Every morning, he opened his little workshop where he repaired chairs, tables, and old cabinets for the neighbors. People in town respected him, not because he was rich, but because Daniel was the kind of man who never turned away someone in need. But if you asked the people of that town what they remembered most about Daniel, they would probably mention his dog, a brown shepherd mix named Rusty. Daniel found Rusty 5 years earlier on a cold autumn evening. The dog had been wandering near the highway, thin and frightened. A car had hit him, leaving him limping on the side of the road. Most people drove past, but Daniel stopped. He carefully wrapped the injured dog in his jacket and took him to a nearby veterinary clinic. The vet said the dog might never fully recover, but Daniel didn't care. He brought the dog home, fed him, cared for him, and slowly, Rusty healed. From that day forward, the dog never left Daniel's side. Every morning, Rusty followed Daniel to the workshop. While Daniel worked with his tools, Rusty lay quietly near the door, watching, waiting, protecting. At night, the dog slept beside the front porch, like a silent guard. Neighbors often joked that Rusty wasn't just a pet, he was Daniel's shadow. But one stormy night, everything changed. It was late spring when the weather forecast warned about severe storms across the region. Heavy rain began falling across the town. At first, people thought it was just another storm, but by midnight, the river began rising dangerously fast. Emergency sirens echoed through the town. Authorities started urging people to evacuate. Flash flood warning. Move to higher ground immediately. Daniel quickly grabbed a flashlight and packed a small bag. He whistled for Rusty. "Come on, boy. We have it to go," but as Daniel stepped outside the house, his foot slipped on the soaked wooden porch. He fell hard onto the ground. A sharp crack echoed through the night. Pain shot through his leg. Daniel tried to stand, but he couldn't. His leg was broken. Rain poured down like sheets of glass. Within minutes, water from the overflowing river began rushing into his yard. Daniel tried calling for help, but the wind swallowed his voice. The floodwater kept rising, first to his ankles, then his knees. Panic crept into his chest. He realized something terrifying. He might not survive the night, but Daniel wasn't alone. Standing beside him in the rising water was Rusty. The dog barked loudly, over and over again, as if calling the entire town for help. But the storm was too powerful. The roads were already flooded. No one could hear them. The water rose higher. Daniel dragged himself toward a large oak tree nearby, using the trunk to hold himself upright. Rusty stayed beside him the entire time. Whenever the current pushed Daniel off balance, the dog pressed against his side, helping him stay standing. Floating debris rushed past them. Branches, pieces of wood. Rusty barked and nudged them away. Hours passed. The freezing water made Daniel shiver violently. His strength slowly faded, but Rusty never left. The dog stayed pressed against him through the entire night. 12 long hours passed in darkness. Just before sunrise, rescue boats began searching the flooded neighborhoods. One of the rescue teams suddenly heard barking, a loud, desperate bark echoing through the flooded streets. They followed the sound, and what they found left them speechless. There, in waist-deep water beside an oak tree, was Daniel Harper, barely conscious, and standing beside him was a soaked, exhausted dog who refused to leave his side. Rusty was still barking, still guarding the man who once saved him. The rescuers rushed toward them. They carefully lifted Daniel into the boat, and Rusty immediately jumped in after him, refusing to be separated, even for a moment. At the hospital, Doctors later said something remarkable. If the dog hadn't helped him stay upright through the night, he would have drowned. Daniel survived. After several weeks in the hospital, he finally returned home. The flood waters had receded. The town slowly returned to normal. But something had changed. People across the town had heard the story of a dog who refused to abandon his owner during the worst storm of the year. When Daniel arrived home, Rusty ran toward him, his tail wagging wildly. Daniel knelt down slowly and wrapped his arms around the dog. Tears filled his eyes. "You saved my life, boy." Months later, the town council placed a small wooden sign near Daniel's workshop. Visitors still stop to read it today. "De San Seis, loyalty lives here." And beside those words is a simple drawing of a man and his dog standing together in rising water. True loyalty reveals itself in the darkest moments. Sometimes the purest form of love comes from those who cannot speak, but whose actions show everything. If an animal saved your life the way Rusty saved Daniel, how would you repay that loyalty? And why do you think animals sometimes show deeper loyalty than humans? Share your thoughts in the comments.